Wall Street Journal calls it cynical and unrealistic. Congressman Paul Ryan said that presidents are elected to lead, not to punt. And Andrew Sullivan, blistering with rage, called it a cynical diversion. What is it? It's President Obama's $3.73 trillion budget proposal with $1.65 trillion in red ink. That's 44 cents out of every dollar in fresh red. I'm Steve Green. This is Trifecta. And with me today, wearing their fiercest expressions and their greenest eye shades, are two men who know a thing or two about Washington's cynical diversions, I'm sorry to say. From PJTV's sprawling Los Angeles studios, a man so deep in debt he had to start his own entertainment company just to raise some gas money. Bill Whittle. Welcome, Bill. Yes, and from our Allentown, PA affiliate, a man whose fiscal reasoning is so sound he once spent a summer as Milton Friedman's convenience store clerk. Our own Scott Ott. Hello, Scott.
Greetings.
There we go. Bill, the numbers might astound you right before they make you go numb. And on Monday, Tim Geithner, the Treasury Secretary, that's the fox in front of the hen house, he told the president that our outstanding federal debt is now equal to an entire year of GDP. That's higher than it was at the end of World War II when, we just finished kicking fascism in the teeth. So what do we get for our money this time around?
Squat all and nothing, buddy. Just about nothing. Of all of the tragedies inherent into this god-awful mess, the one I read that broke my heart the most came just a week or two ago, where they were saying, well, we spent $800 billion on this, on this big stimulus package, but at least we got our roads fixed and our bridges repaired and all of that crumbling infrastructure. At least we got that taken care of. Shovel-ready construction projects. Then I began to realize how all the feminist groups began to say, we can't spend all this money on construction. Those are men's jobs. We can't have this whole thing go to the testosterone crowd. Why don't we start building bridges to people? Why don't we start talking about our crumbling emotional infrastructure? So even the god-awful waste and the mindless spending, which at least on some level could have bought us something, bought us a couple of seminars and a little bit of self-esteem for various feminist groups, and beyond that, not really too damn much. Make you want to cry if it didn't make you want to blow your brains out, honestly.
Yeah, really. Scott, buried under all that red ink is, wait for it, tax increases. Tax increases on oil, gas, coal producers, investment managers, and U.S.-based multinational corporations. But it also assumes better than average 4% economic growth over the next few years. Scott, buddy, how are we going to get all that growth with all those taxes?
Well, see, that's the beauty of budgets. Budgets are entirely fictional documents, and they're based on whatever set of presuppositions you'd like to impose upon them. And of course, you would never say, well, let's put together a budget that supposes that we're going to go into a trench deeper than 2009 or something. Let's see what that scenario is. But frankly, we ought to demand that kind of a budget from our government. We ought to say, show us the worst case scenario budget. What would you cut if you thought everything was going to completely and utterly melt down? And if that's what you would do in a complete catastrophe, do it now.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. Looking ahead, go figure. Bill, Andrew Sullivan, Sully, believe it or not, wrote about the budget on Monday. These are his words to all those under 30 who worked so hard to get this man elected. Know this, he just screwed you over. He thinks you're fools. When the presidents lost Sullivan on Valentine's Day, no less, who does the president have left?
On Valentine's Day, oh, the pain of it all. I could barely face the question. Yeah, one of the things that Glenn Reynolds likes to use a lot on Instapundit is, who are the rubes and suckers now, you rubes and suckers? And those of us who saw all this coming, who saw the most liberal senator in the history of the Senate with no business experience, no government experience, no budget balancing experience, man who's never had to staff the fry station at a McDonald's, coming in to take over the world's largest economy, armed with briefcases of ideologues like Van Jones, and instead of reading books on economics, reading about, rules for radicals and all this other stuff. Who could have seen this coming? It's just, it boggles the imagination. Yeah, who are the rubes and suckers now, you kids? You're halfway through this. You're halfway through this term. Wait till the second half kicks in, and all of you who voted for him when you were 18 are now 22, wondering where the jobs are. Dummies.
Yeah. Yeah, and although folks who've been watching Trifecta since the beginning have known all of this for almost 2 years now, you lucky devils, you. All right, Scott, Paul Ryan said the budget is debt on arrival, D-E-B-T, debt. What's the next move in the House? How do Ryan and Boehner fight not just this budget, but the deep cynicism in the White House?
Well, actually, I hope that they take an approach that maybe is a little less adversarial than we have the liberty to do here, because we're just three guys in three rectangles who can say whatever we want. But we don't have to go home and represent 600-some thousand people in our districts and make sense to them. I really do hope they take this thing and take it seriously and demonstrate to the American people how this is so far from a solution to the problem. It actually exacerbates the problem and actually increases, that $14 trillion worth of debt we've been talking about. If you look down the road at this thing, that's actually going to increase. And I think the American people are saying, no, stop. We don't even want to raise the debt ceiling now, let alone 10 years from now. 10 years from now, I was kind of hoping that debt ceiling would be down around $2 trillion or less.
Yeah, this budget, this 1 year's budget closes us in on $16 trillion in debt. All right, Bill, the National Journal asks, what could you do with $3.73 trillion? But I don't think that's the right question. What is?
That's roughly, we'll call it $4 trillion. If I had $4 trillion to spend, I'd give $1 trillion to Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi, Harry Reid, and Barney Frank to go home. And that may seem like a lot of money, $1 trillion to give somebody to retire. But honestly, if that were the end of the bleed and the damage, and we could start just freezing costs, we'd be able to grow ourselves out of this deficit in 20 or 30 years. So it seems like a small price for me to pay to spend that kind of money to get these clowns just to go home and maybe, leave 535 open seats. You might be able to fill some random percentage of that with actual people who've had some business experience and wouldn't get us into any deeper trouble.
And for the first time ever about Washington spending, I'd say that's money well spent. And that is Bill Whittle, co-founder of Declaration Entertainment, where you get to help produce the movies you want to see. Check it out. Scott, the EU is thinking about bailing out Greece to get its debts from 140% of GDP down to under about 90%. Now, all of Europe, all put together, still has enough money to give tiny Greece a hand. But, Scott, who bails us out?
Well, first of all, our friends in the Communist Chinese government have been very gracious to keep bailing us out repeatedly over the years and keeping us afloat, so that the full faith and credit of the United States government is actually based on the full faith and credit of the Communist Chinese government. It's kind of a fascinating concept when you get into it. Should we bail out Greece? Is Greece too big to fail? You know why they're going to bail out Greece? Because they don't want all the refugees who have fled Africa to go to Greece, to leave Greece, and go to the rest of Europe.
That's Scott Ott, author of Laughing at Obama, Volume 1, but today I don't feel much like laughing. Before we finish, if you're watching this on YouTube, check out all of our shows at PJTV.com. All right, folks, the president's budget is cynical. The Wall Street Journal is right, but not because he's given up on restoring fiscal sanity, but because it's cynical by design. There never was any hope or any change. This budget, just like the last two, were multi-trillion-dollar payoffs to his cronies on our dime. And now he's going to use this new budget as a club to beat down the GOP to retain political power. And if he bankrupts the country, that's okay. The Democrats will still be in charge of whatever is left. And it's by design. For Scott Ott, Bill Whittle, and everybody here at PJTV, I'm Steve Green.